So the San Francisco 49ers got all the way to the NFC Championship with a third string backup quarterback in Brock Purdy, who unfortunately gets hurt in that game and they fall short and get blown out by Philly in the biggest game of the season. So, Kyle, with the 49ers having the league's best defense, one of the best coaches in the NFL, and an absolutely incredible season, what do you think are some needs that they have to improve upon for 2023?
Kev, I'm not going to lie. This is going to be a tough one for me because when it comes to the 49ers, they're one of the most well-rounded teams in the NFL, offensively, defensively, special teams. This team is stacked. And you could tell during the season, they had a third-string quarterback in Brock Purdy, and the team didn't miss a beat. You could even make a case that the team was playing better with Brock than they were with Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's really saying something. But, obviously when it comes to the 49ers, there's one aspect that I want to focus on, and that is the quarterback situation. When it comes to who they're potentially going to start at the beginning of next year, it's a toss-up between Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And both guys had significant injuries this year. Obviously, Trey was their number one guy at the beginning of the year. He gets hurt early on. Jimmy comes in relief. He gets hurt. And then Brock comes in and just lights it up. And then he unfortunately goes down with a UCL injury in his elbow. And that surgery recovery is set for a timetable of 6 to 9 months, which, on the bright side could be around the time training camp starts. But if you were to drag it out, he may not come back until October. It kind of depends on how quickly and how effectively he's able to handle his rehab. But that's going to be a burning question that the 49ers are going to have to contend with this offseason. Is who's going to be their number one guy at the quarterback spot. And listen, I understand when it comes to the 49ers as a unit, they're solid defensively and offensively. They have the skill players to be able to compete at a high level. But if your quarterback situation is in flux based on guys getting hurt and you have a potential quarterback competition between Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, time is going to tell who's going to be able to earn that spot and essentially lead the offense from here on out. As far as I see it, when it comes to what Brock did, I thought what Brock did was really impressive. And I think from a front office perspective, it makes sense long-term to go with Brock because the potential contract that he's going to get down the line, I don't think would dwarf what Trey Lance could get. Because if Trey Lance were to come onto the scene and really light it up, Trey within the next couple of years could potentially get $35-40 million a year contract. But the problem is that he just can't stay healthy. When you look at Brock signed a 4-year deal when he got drafted by the 49ers. And you look at his cap hit over the next couple of years, it's not in the millions of dollars. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So from a financial perspective, from a front office perspective, it makes sense to stick with Brock and maybe have Trey Lance as the backup, even though from a cap situation, it's kind of crazy that your backup would be the guy who's technically getting paid more. But Brock was able to show it. Brock led them to the NFC Championship in that quarterback spot, and he did so effectively. He didn't turn the ball over, which was huge. He didn't cost them any games, which is kind of crazy to say with somebody who was the last draft pick in the NFL. He brought a level of poise that I think nobody was really expecting unless you were a member of the 49ers and maybe some diehard 49ers fans who saw some potential with him. But to me, that's the biggest burning question when it comes to the 49ers this year. There are some other areas that I know Kev will touch on, but as far as I see it, the biggest one to me is their quarterback situation. And I think at this point, I would tend to side with Brock being the starting quarterback for the foreseeable future over Trey. But I think Trey could get a start depending whether or not Brock's ready to go week 1. But I'll just leave it at that.
I agree completely with Kyle. The quarterback position's got to be the most important piece. They're doing everything that they're doing with the staff that they currently have assimilated, obviously with the team that they currently have built around them. And now we're talking about the biggest piece being the quarterback position because all three of them are hurt. And you're like, well, is Jimmy G going to come back? Probably not. Is Trey Lance going to be ready? More than likely. Is Brock Purdy going to be able to take the horn again? Maybe. there's so many looming questions at the most important position. So I'll kind of backtrack into a different position here. And I'm going to go with cornerback depth, right? So Jimmy Ward's a free agent. There are a couple different instances where it looked like Jimmy was specifically kind of hinting at becoming a free agent. He kind of took the route of like, I did good. I didn't really have any problems against Philly. Like, I only let up blah, blah, blah passes. That's just not a good look. That's not something you want on your team, especially with how deep they currently already are. In every other position, quite frankly, I mean, in the linebacker position, you have an All-Pro. At the defensive line position, you have a multitude of monsters. At the safety position, they're deep. It's just you have to figure out what you're going to do to replace Jimmy if he does leave, and even if he doesn't, you're going to need some slot depth. You're going to need some backup depth. You're going to need just that is probably going to be the weakest thing that I can possibly think of with over the top of my head because they got Kittle at the tight end. At the running back, you have Christian McCaffrey. You have Elijah Mitchell. At the offensive line, you have one of the best, if not the best, left tackle in the game. How much more can you potentially think? Like, they're wide receivers with Debo and Ayuk and Jawan. Is it Jawan Jennings, Kyle?
Yes, sir.
They have a very solid receiving core. And then, like I said, defensively, they're really, really tight wound and tight knit. So we're picking at straws here, trying to figure out positions that they need. And like Kyle said, they don't really need a whole lot. But if I had to name something that wasn't the quarterback, it would have to be some cornerback depth, pending that Jimmy leaves. And even if he doesn't, just to have some security in that secondary.